Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market here with this week's episode of the Market Monday Recap, where I recap the popular video series that I do over at my main channel, the Rogue Deck Builder, called Market Monday. Usually I'll take a topic, market related, talk about that topic, and do a big 35-minute ramble about it. The Market Monday Recap is more of the TLDR version, or we'll look at cards that I specifically talked about surrounding that topic. This week I have been talking, this month, I've really been talking about Ultimate Masters. We talked about the low where this set bottomed out, and I do think that we'll still have a lot of supply trickle in from Walmart, Target, and other boxes. I still think there's another wave coming with the Ultimate Masters, which will settle prices for a while. However, there are already some cards that are at their bottoms and are not shooting back up in value. We've seen cards like Liliana and Karn and Caverns of Souls start to go back up in value, but these, what I like to call scraping the barrel targets, are still very, very low, and I think they are bargain investments right now, and that's kind of what I like to focus on. I am one of those grinder type people where I like to take inexpensive cards and invest in them and then buy list them later on when they've doubled up in price from what I've purchased them. And I made a pretty good returns on most of those cards. So for this episode, we're going to look at all of the cards that I currently am investing in under the dollar mark that are also 10,000 or more decks in Commander. So I'm using the EDHrec.com as the baseline for EDHrec. What they do is they scrape together various Commander decks from sites like Tapped Out. There are plenty of sites that they actually scrap some lists from, and then give you a number of how many decks that they are played in. You can actually look up at specific Commander decks for deck lists. It's kind of the net decking of Commander, and it's the best resource you have to predict exactly how much demand that the Commander brings to these particular cards. So again, for this one, we're going to look at cards under $1 with at least 10,000 decks. Now, sometimes I don't like to use this metric because this number is not created equal for various sets. Like, you can't compare a Return to Ravnica card with a Rivals of Ixalan card and say, hey, look at this Return to Ravnica card, it's in 1,000 decks. It must be so much better than this Rivals of Ixalan card that's only in 100 decks. Because the Return to Ravnica existed on the website with many, many decks being inputted for years and years, whereas Rivals of Ixalan is still pretty new. So of course, Return to Ravnica cards will be played at a higher number than your typical Rivals of Ixalan. So if you want to compare demand, you need to compare sets or blocks together to get a really good number. So anyway, let's start this off with all the cards, common, uncommon, rare, that have 10,000 or more copies on EDH on various decks. So the first one is Terramorphic Expanse. I do not invest in Terramorphic Expanse because this is the definition of what I like to call the bulk cards, because the demand will never be outstretched by the supply because Wizards reprints this card like crazy. You can see the last time this was printed, it was 15 cents. It has never really gone above 15 cents because by the time there is any sort of serious demand for this card, it'll just get reprinted. So you want to avoid cards like this, even though Terramorphic Expanse is played in an astronomical amount of Commander decks. These are cards that I keep on hand. Like, I don't even feel bad usually when I'm buying sets. I don't really take this out. I kind of leave it in the bulk. So I have a process in my store, have like what's called bulk that doesn't have value, but I still take it out because someday it might have value, or it's a unique enough card. And then I have the true bulk, which is cards I can never move because there's just either A, way too much supply, or B, the card is outclassed easily by other cards. And Terramorphic Expanse is that A portion of that. Again, it just gets reprinted too much. Occasionally I'll sell these cards. Actually, I sell quite a few of them, but it's at such a 5 cent, 10 cent price that it's not worth my time to really accumulate these Terramorphic Expanses. All right, so the next one is Kodama's Reach. Kodama's Reach is huge. This is a great spec right now because it is a whopping 50,000. When you're up to this point in Commander, this is like Sol Ring levels. This is like every green deck wants a Kodama's Reach. And Kodama Reach has actually been printed a ton. If we come over here, it has been printed in the Commander 2017, Champions of Kamigawa, Commander 2015, Commander, Modern Masters, Commander 2016, and now in Ultimate Masters. And every time they reprint this, it seems to go right back up to that $2 mark. Now, this is going to be its heaviest printing. Again, Eternal Masters and the Champion Kamigawa and Commander sets are nowhere near the amount that is going to be brought in from the Ultimate Masters. So yes, this is going to have a very significant impact on the card price, but I still like it long term. Currently, they're being sold for about the 50-cent mark. I've seen these as cheap as 25 cents on TCG Player. In fact, that's kind of the price that I would target them, is between 25 and 30 cents. And these buy lists are going to start going up for Kodama's Reach. There aren't any real decent buy lists because a lot of companies don't look for commons when the set first comes out. But this is going to be one that's going to be put on buy list when the demand starts to outstretch the supply. Again, this is a card that it gets reprinted almost every Commander set and then bounces back up. So it might not hit the $2 mark anytime soon. It might actually be reprinted before it hits the $2 mark. But eventually this card is going to, it's shown in the past that they can put in a Commander set and that's not enough supply to meet the demand, and the price still goes up. So I like Kodama's Reach for that. It's one of the better ones. 25 cents to 35 cents is where I like the price point. The next one is Rogue's Passage. Rogue's Passage is a card that I also do not invest in. You can see it only got up to about the 28-cent mark before the reprinting. This is a card that is not only printed like crazy in supplemental products like Commander, but it seems to actually get printed a lot in just sets. And this Ultimate Master is going to add too much supply for Rogue's Passage. It could go up slightly, but again, the margins just aren't there to be even investing at this at the 15 cent mark. And again, what's your best outcome? In my opinion, it's not anything that's reasonable. And it's kind of in the Terramorphic Expanse range at this point. It's just been reprinted way too many times to get me excited to really start collecting these. Again, I'll pull these out of bulk when I buy collection, but yeah, I don't actively look for cards and I actively don't have a price or a buy list for these type of cards. Alrighty, on to one that's very similar to that is Treasure Cruise. Treasure Cruise has the sin of being printed in the Khans of Tarkir, as well as the sin of being banned in basically every format besides Commander. What I like about Kodama's Reach is it actually has some demand outside of Commander in various, I've seen it in Modern decks before, I've seen it in Pauper decks before. Again, not in huge numbers, but they're there. Treasure Cruise doesn't have that option, so therefore it's not stripping the demand from other places. And I think that's kind of important for a lot of these Commander staples. You want them to have more relevance than just Commander if you're really looking for them to go up. Treasure Cruise has also been reprinted plenty of times since Khans of Tarkir. So currently Khans of Tarkir has the most stock per card. It was the height of Magic. It has that's why if you look at humans, you'll see like Reflector Mage being the same price as like the Mantis Rider, one being an uncommon out of Oath of Gatewatch, more recent than a rare out of Khans of Tarkir. That just shows you how much Khans of Tarkir was opened for the fetch lands. And for that reason, like a lot of rares, uncommons, and commons out of Khans of Tarkir are hard to invest in. Treasure Cruise, though, has it being banned going against it. So that's why I'll pick them out of bulk, but this card is tough to move. It's rarely ever on buy lists, and yeah, it's a card that I don't think you should actively be looking for. But that does bring us to Dig Through Time. Dig Through Time is surprising to me because it is banned in a bunch of formats, but in Commander, it is a powerhouse within 17,000 decks. This is a combo enabler. It's a great draw spell. It's a high converted mana cost spell that works with a bunch of commanders that can cheat it out like that, but the delve is very easy in Commander to then go through 7 cards, get 2 of them. Like I said, enables so much combos, and this was already approaching around the $2 mark. It was a spec of mine. I did end up buy listing them all for 95 cents before Ultimate Masters was just because the box art. I thought the box art was going to be Dig Through Time, and that was a day I got out of them. However, Dig Through Time is now back down to a very reasonable buy-in price of around 35 cents. I've seen these as low as 20 cents, even 15 cents at one point for Dig Through Time. Someone has bought these up, so we've already seen a lot of investors really start to pick up the slack with what Ultimate Masters caused some of these $2, $3, $4 cards to crash all the way down to nothing. Dig Through Time is one of the better ones to start picking up. Yes, it's banned in many formats, but it still is a Commander powerhouse, and I like picking these up from anywhere from 15 cents to a quarter. I think that's a very smart thing. These will be back on buy list before you know it, as, again, 17,000 is no joke. All right, so on to Faithless Looting. This is the best common to invest in, and this is one that I'm actively looking for. How I typically like these, though, is just to rifle through people's draft trash and then offer them like a quarter for a common here, because some people just don't know that commons have value. The same thing can be said about Kodama's Reach, but Faithless Looting is kind of the most popular card, I would say, in Magic the Gathering at the moment. So it's just sees so much play in Pauper, so much play in Commander, and so much play in Modern that it really has kind of the Holy Trinity going for it. I mean, I guess Pauper's not in the Holy Trinity standard to be there, but Faithless Looting is is in Modern, I believe, like the number 3 played card in Modern, especially with a bunch of the Phoenix decks. Really utilizing it, and any graveyard-based strategy that wants to use it. Faithless Looting has been there in Modern for quite some time. Legacy even plays it. I even believe Vintage plays the Faithless Looting. So 14,000 decks is no joke with this. This card has been reprinted a ton, and it still goes up in value. So you can see that it was a media promo. It was printed in Commander Anthology, Commander 2015, Dual Deck Sorin versus T-Balt, Commander 2014, Eternal Masters, as well as Dark Ascension. And Dark Ascension actually had quite a bit of supply. It really wasn't there from the Return to Ravnica forward supply, but both Dark Ascension and Theros had high demand and were printed in their time period quite a bit. They had multiple print runs, and there's a lot more supply of these two sets particular compared to the Scars of Mirrodin block. So if a common out of Dark Ascension was able to hit the $2 mark, that means that this is a card that's a very special card. And currently right now you can be found as low as 20 cents. The market price is around 40 cents. I wouldn't fault you for getting in at a quarter for Faithless Looting and buying up as many as possible. Yes, I think they'll continue to print this card, but if it's just printed in Commander sets, that's not a big amount of supply being added. Remember, if it's printed even as a common in one Commander set, it might as well be printed as a Mythic in that Commander set, because the rarity really means nothing for those particular Commander sets. All right, so on to the next one is Buried Alive. This is probably my second favorite spec out of all the Scraping the Barrel cards here. Buried Alive sees almost as much play as Faithless Looting. I play it in basically every black deck. It's so degenerate. If you have any way to reanimate cards or utilize any cards in your graveyard, Buried Alive is amazing. It's just 3 targets in your graveyard to do crazy stuff in Commander. Currently, Buried Alive is going for... let's see, I moved this one over. Buried Alive is currently going for around the 50-cent mark, which I think is a bargain. I think you can easily pay a quarter for these. Again, this is going to be your typical Modern player that's like, oh, it's not my format, I don't care about it. They don't realize it has value outside of it, and it's easy to get it off them. So those are the type of people you want to find that have been opening Ultimate Masters, is that your typical Modern players, the people looking for Lilianas. They're not going to think this is worth anything. They're going to easily give it up, and paying a quarter or less is ideal. This is another card that does tend to get printed a lot. It was in Odyssey and Weatherlight, so twice as an uncommon, and then in various Commander sets. But it is a really, really strong powerhouse in the Commander format, and I think getting in at a quarter is a bargain. The next one is the Thesbian Stage. I'm going to include this in the Scraping the Barrel because even though it's currently over $1, I think that I've seen it for as low as 35 cents. Now I'm kicking myself. I think it was Sunday or Saturday night. There were Thesbian Stages, Revel Arcs, a bunch of these cards at like 35 to 10 cents each. It was crazy how low these cards got, and some smart investors scooped them all up. And I was about to do that. I was putting cards in my cart for foils and these low ones, and I just forgot about it, out of sight, out of mind, thought that I'd have a bigger window, and someone beat me to it. This card sees a ton of play in Commander, and it's very versatile. It's easy to just throw in any deck because it's one of those cards that can actually copy your opponent's bounce lands, and then is a pretty good... You just turn 1 land into 2 land with no downside. It also has a lot of combos with the Dark Depths and various other cards like the Cabal Coffers, Urbook Tremiagma combo. In any black deck, you run a Thesbian Stage in there as well. Again, very versatile card. Any Commander deck can really throw it in and call it good. And for that reason, it was a spec of mine for quite some time. Unfortunately, I did not personally get out of these before Ultimate Masters, which was silly because Scrawn and I on a live stream trying to predict what cards were going to be in the set both called Thesbian Stage, and I just forgot to sell it off. But anyway, I think it's a great time to get into Thesbian Stage as it is still quite low at around the $1.25 mark. Like I said, I've seen these as low as the 35-cent mark, and that's just a steal of a deal to get into a card that has so much demand. Again, it sees play every now and again in various other formats, but it's mainly as Commander that is the one that's stretching it. So Archaeomancer is in the same category as everything else. It is a card that there are plenty of other cards that do a similar ability. It tends to be the better one of those. I mean, between this and Mnemonic Wall, the Mnemonic Wall seems way more in the Pauper format than Archaeomancer because the mana is easier. But Archaeomancer is just been printed so many times that they're going to print it again before the demand actually starts to outstretch it. And so, again, for the same reasons of the ones I talked about previous, I'm not actively picking up Archaeomancers. I'll take them out of bulk, but that's about as far as I'll go. The next one is Laboratory Maniac. This is another one that's fallen from its $8 mark from the last time it was printed, all the way down to about I believe I've seen them as low as a quarter, and currently they've rebounded back up to $1. So I still like between the 50-cent and 75-cent to target these. They see play in ad nauseum in Modern. They see play in various degenerate commander decks that just draw their entire library and have this be the win condition. And I think that's gonna be about the low. I have a hard time seeing Laboratory Maniac going lower than 50 cents, and then it will be a good. These out of sight, out of mind cards are great long term because these are the type of stuff that they don't like stand the test of time like rares. There are so many players that just take their rares out and will literally throw away their uncommons and commons. You'll see that even with any Master set. Masters 2017, there are so many people at that tournament in the Vegas where you'd find like signets all day long in people's draft trash and whatnot. So I think Laboratory Maniac's going to suffer from that, which actually has that going for it. So what I'm trying to say is it's more supply being printed as an uncommon, but it has a better time rebounding at that rarity than if it was printed at a rare. I'm not saying the rare would have been the rare would be worth more. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that Laboratory Maniac has a better chance of recovering from the price point that it is. So doubling up has a better chance, in my opinion. Alrighty, so let's go on to the next card, which is the Shriekma. Shriekma is I think my third favorite spec at this point. Because the price point is a lot more, you can be a lot more aggressive with the price point because it's so low. So Shriekma has seen play in almost 12,000 decks. It does see play in Living End in Modern. It has seen play in various Aristocrats or pod type decks in the past for Modern. So you never know when a card like that will be printed again and really be able to exploit Shriekma. As the 2-mana to destroy non-bat creatures is still pretty potent even in Modern. But in Commander, it goes in plenty of decks like Marquesa. There are anything that has an Aristocrats type feel gets value out of a creature coming in and dying. Shriekma is there. So Shriekma is currently going for a whopping 10 to 15 cents, I believe, is what the price was at. Yep, about 20 cents and below. You can find plenty of Shriekmas. And even though it has been printed quite significantly in Commander sets in the past, it still looks like a pretty good target. Lorwyn, Archenemy, Commander. It misses about 50% of the Commander decks, I would say. So the supply is not there as high as some of these cards. They get reprinted even more, and I believe it sees enough play for the price to start creeping up. So I like Shriekma. The next one is Revelark. This is my favorite by far spec because it's a rare that is extremely low. It tends to be a command zone favorite. If you watch the command zone, they play this card a lot in many of their combo decks or many of their white decks because it combos so well. They recently spotlighted it having the combo with the Pattern of Rebirth. The Evoke is potent in Commander as well as just the ability to flicker it is very good and then bring back 2 creatures with power 2 or less. There are a lot of degenerate combos. This is a huge engine in Commander. It has seen play in Modern from time to time, even though it hasn't seen play for a while. In Modern, again, it's like the pod type list that used to use it as they could then get the leaving the battlefield type ability. You never know, though, if the format does slow down a more grindy version, Modern could see Revelark coming back to it. However, Commander sees enough demand at almost 11,500 decks, and again, it is a very, very popular flashy card that people at a very, very low price point, I think, are more willing to get in on the Revelark. So currently can be had for 40 cents. I've seen it as low as 20 cents. There was a time where there was a whole page of these. We're talking 50 plus cards of Revelarks for 20 cents. Had it in the cart, forgot to check it out. I'm kicking myself. Which one of you bought them? I'm very upset, but that's on me. Anyway, this does tend to get printed decently in Commanders, Commander 2016, Commander Anthology, Modern Masters, and Morningtide. So the supply isn't too high from it, but I absolutely love this card. I think it's the best scraping the barrel target for over 10,000 cards. The next one is Frantic Search. Frantic Search I really like the price point because these are basically bulk at this point. It's only the second printing. The foils is where I really like them. You can find foils at $1. And the non-foil is currently going for, 10 cents. So again, this is going to take a long time for this card to recover. It was all the way up to about $1.50 before the reprinting because it was Urza's Legacy, I believe, before this. And even the supply of commons from that isn't that substantial. It is a very, very popular card in Commander because untapping 2 lands is basically a free spell. It's a Faithless Looting that's free at that point because you're untapping the lands, and then you can actually net up mana by untapping bounce lands or just lands that add more than 1 mana. So it is a mainstay for Commander. Like I said, it got all the way up to $150. Card Kingdom was selling it for $229. It's almost an 11,000 dex. And it draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, untap 3 lands. Everything that most spell-based decks in Commander want to happen. It is banned in Pauper, so you can't play it there, but a lot of casual decks do play it. So I like picking up these cards, again, pulling them out of bulk, offering 5 cents a piece. Really going after the foils, though, is where I think is a smart play with the Frantic Search, because there's not a lot of supply from... did Legacy have... I think, yeah, Urza's Legacy did have foils, but again, it wasn't... the supply levels were incredibly low. All right, so Artisan of Kozlak I also put in the category of uninvestable because even though it sees play like 10,500 decks, this card competes with a lot of other cards in that slot. This card is often one of those cards you put in until you can afford the more expensive card of whatever you want. The returning a creature of your graveyard to the battlefield is nice. It actually is one of the better Eldrazi's, but with the more cards printed, the more times Artisan of Kozlak gets pushed out of its slot. It still isn't a substantial amount of decks. However, that said, this is also a very favorite card for Wizards to print and print and print and print in Commander sets, because when we're looking for like a big payoff card, oh, Artisan of Kozlak can just go in the set because it's an uncommon. So it doesn't really have to tap into their equity that they are putting aside. So a lot of times they'll cap it at $100 they'll put in a Commander deck. And so Artisan of Kozlak will easily just, at that point, we'll put Artisan of Kozlak rather than Ulamog, for example, or another big creature. So I think that this card will always be printed more than the demand will have for it, and it will continue to fall in price. You can see that it barely even got up to 35 cents the last time it was printed before it was reprinted Ultimate Masters. So again, even though it's a little bit, the supply or the demand looks very heavy comparatively, it's just one of those cards that, it just gets replaced too much. On to Anger. Anger is the last card over the 10,000. I actually think it's a very good pickup. Currently, right before the reprint, it made it all the way up to $3 for Anger. This is a card that has had several printings, yet it still hit Anger. It's the most popular one of its type, giving all creatures haste as long as it's in your graveyard. And so many things enable it in Commander. Currently, Anger can be had for the foils for about $1.50, which I think is pretty smart to target the foils. I think it's the first time foiling. I might be wrong there. Actually, I think I am wrong there. But the normal is currently going for around that 20 cent. Oops, let's go to normal here and click off foil. 25 cents. So I don't like picking up at 25 cents. I think that's a little bit high. You could probably offer 10 cents for Angers, and that's kind of the place I'd pick these up. Again, target those modern players that don't care about those horrible casual cards, and I think Anger will at least double up, triple up in the next year. Again, they print this a lot, but it's not that substantial, and like I said, it already got up to that price point of around $3, which is $3.50 is what Card Kingdom was selling it for before the release of the set. So that's pretty strong. So anyway, this is going to be a video series that I'm going to be doing over here at the Rogue Market, expected to be in the format of how I do the Rogue Roundup. So we're going to look at more edited, using the market indicators, like the little graphics that I use. Going forward, again, I'll have more time after the holidays to really start editing the videos. I'm going to try to do one of those edited, produced videos for this very topic. So it's going to be pretty much the same thing that I did here over at my main channel. So be looking for that if you want more of a condensed version with the little infographs. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Market. Thanks for watching.